Australia's AUSTRAC approved financial regulated cryptocurrency exchange, and here to tell us all about it is Martin. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Tim. I run KTM Ventures Innovation Fund LP. We're a early stage venture capital limited partnership fund. It's one of those government approved funds, and so we turned our mind to this space around about a year ago. And we purchased just over 25% of a cryptocurrency exchange, IndependentReserve. But I've got more of an interesting story about PlayUp. Both Ryan and Daniel came into my office last year separately, and I said, you guys should do an ICO. So, at the time, I don't even think ICO wasn't common knowledge then, or it wasn't normally there. But it's great to see the ecosystem here. So I promise I won't go through too much detail on some slides here. I'm going to have a bit of fun for the next 15 minutes, and please feel free to ask any questions at the end. I'm invested in PlayUp ICO as a bit of a disclaimer. So I won't go through too much in the blockchain technology, but I just want to make 2 points. Firstly, it's a real breakthrough in computer science. Scientists like Steph have been looking at cryptography for about 40 years, and the real big breakthrough came out in a paper by a pseudonym named Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was about Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic way to pay, electronic cash. And that was a trust machine. So it's just a database that's decentralized and allows people to do it. It does this thing called Byzantine's general problem. I put a part up of the slide there, but you can have a look at that later, of course. So in effect, what we've got is real-time transfer that's low fee. And I know the question before was, hey, gold 1.0, gold 2.0. Well, if you could transfer gold in real time to the other side of the world, that would be pretty neat, right? And you could still own that custody. And that's effectively what this is. And it's, a lot of the parts out of it are from those who are sort of really anti-government libertarians, and, it appeals to the same sort of gold people. But there are some elements that are a little bit different about it, I suppose. And I think I've listed some of these out here, but, I don't want to spend too much time because we've already had sort of a blockchain primer. So Bitcoin was the real first blockchain, and one point that I wanted to put up here is when it started, it was kind of very much an experiment. But for those who came in early, really early when it started trading on the first exchange in July 2010, you'd have a 6 million something % return on your money. But it has actually gone through multiple bear markets, and one of the biggest ones was when an exchange called Mt. Gox. Effectively, they stole the client's money. So those private keys that Steph was talking about beforehand, some employees inside that exchange, they stole that. And the price of Bitcoin collapsed, and it was in this huge bear market. But what happened behind the scenes was there was a lot of technologists that worked on the ecosystem and helped build that. So now we have quite an interesting paradigm, because when Japan made Bitcoin legal tender about the middle of last year, the whole sector exploded. And in a particular point, we're a small institution here in Australia, but some of the major banks, insurance companies in Japan got behind the space and got invested. So what started with Bitcoin 8 years ago is it spawned this entire set of different businesses that's serving the ecosystem. Look, most of these are in America, and most of them are funded by some of the top venture capital groups in the world. Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures and Digital Currency Group are the main investors behind this. But they've all been, for instance, Mark Andreessen was one of the first investors in Facebook's on the board of Facebook. And so all of these people have really got behind this. And if you go speak with Mark Andreessen, he says when he was there at the start, when the internet was being developed, he developed Netscape, the browser. The one thing that he didn't have then was the ability to do micropayments and money on the internet. So this is what this really is. And I wanted to put some of these companies in here. Of course, I've given a plug for my independent reserve and another company invested called Identity. But there's a whole set of companies out there that's doing this. And one of the big promises is to provide services for the unbanked. So there's about 2 billion people who are unbanked and another 2 billion people who are underbanked in the world. I was recently caught up with Tom Waterhouse, and he was talking to me about how William Hill was looking to do an ICO last year, and obviously things have changed. But he said he originally was skeptical, looked at the space in 2014 when another group company out of Taiwan. They were taking cryptocurrency as inputs in for an online gambling space. And these were people in India and China that didn't have access to a normal bank account. So they actually would have a cryptocurrency wallet and they were trading. Now this company's private. It's very, very profitable. It makes more money than William Hill today. And you should have seen Tom Waterhouse. He's gone completely 180 degrees and was thinking, really, this is the way to get into it. So that's why I thought, like, the PlayUp is a really good way to get in, and this is really on the ground floor, guys. So I put this slide in for a bit of fun because, the CEO of the Australian Stock Exchange, Elmer Funky Cupid, put an opinion piece last year, and I think my blood boiled at the time when it said, Bitcoin will go the way of the tulips. And effectively they said, Dutch tulips have sold for crazy prices, these foolish newcomers came in, it went totally crazy, people went bankrupt when it collapsed, they threw themselves in canals, and the government finally stepped in, ceased the trade, but it was too late. The economy of Holland was ruined. Now, Steph would come in and say, well, tulips aren't, they're not durable, like they'll die, they're not scalable, they're not programmable, you heard him say that, they're not fungible, not verifiable, they're not divisible, and they're really hard to transfer. Well, I would add, there's another problem. It's a great story, but it's total fake news. Now, I put up Gordon Gekko because I know all of you here would think of that there, but there's only 37 people who bought tulips above 300 guilders to 5,000 guilders, which is at that peak. So if you look where Gordon Gekko is pointing to here, this is the peak here, it was because people were making a fortune from the Dutch East Indies Company over the last few decades. The first common stock company out there, and they were making dividends. It was corporatizing being a pirate, and to really show off your wealth, you had a nice, beautiful flower. And that was a tulip. So if you really want to show off, when there was a drought in 1637, you were the only one of the few families that had this beautiful tulip on your dining room table. And that's what it was. So how did this myth come out? And, I actually think what we really should look at this is effectively like the dot-com bubble. And I know a lot of you here in the room saw a lot of companies go completely crazy in the dot-com boom. But it actually brought out a lot of the infrastructure from the internet. So the promise of the internet now is in a few big winners. So, Google wasn't around at that time during the dot-com boom. You didn't have Facebook. You had Amazon, but it was in a lesser extent. But really, if you came in behind a few of those ones, there were some massive winners. And the infrastructure that was built around the dot-com boom really built this out. And actually, what I would like to think of is what we're seeing is this ICO economy, and most of it has been America. There's been about $6 billion raised in ICOs in the last year. And we really should think of how these startups are different and how they're backing different. I don't really comment about PlayUp because I know the guys are going to be talking about it later, but you really have, cheaply you're able to get access to web services with Amazon Web Service. If you've ever seen a startup there, you can use social networks to go out and distribute and get your customers. I know this is a big thing for PlayUp. They're really big in all those social media channels. You have the ability to get angel investors in a digital way and crowdsource funding. But what we're looking at here within ICOs is there's a beautiful thing called an ERC20 standard. And there was Bitcoin was reinvented as another form. They don't even think of it as money. Ethereum. And Ethereum is allowing other people to IPO on it. So think of it like a coin that creates its own stock exchange. And that allows people who have an idea to go out, raise money very cheaply. So venture capitalists like me or people funding this room can't do this anymore. It just can be democratized. And you can go raise money for any kind of idea that you like. You've got social collaboration. So if you go and look at the real tech heads that you go work with, they tinker with this all day. They got on these sites called GitHub, and you can start to see how they share their code. There was a thing called CryptoKitties. I saw this in December. I thought, you can't be serious, but you can get a digital cat, and you can breed these digital cats, and it's on the blockchain. You laugh at this, but it's a collectible. There was $20 million made by that company in the month of December. 180,000 people bought these digital cats. And if you looked at the code behind it in GitHub, it's 2,000 lines of code. So a good coder could do this in about a week. So that's like where it's really, really going at. And you see people who are making money from Ethereum and for Bitcoin, they're taking a small piece of this, and this ICOs in effect are their punts. They're small punts. But unlike the previous startup booms, and I think this is really important, there's no implicit time pressure. So there's a development community that goes out there and they go develop what they think is the best part for this form of technology. So I'd like to talk to you today, and of course, this is a company that we purchased 25% of. How do you get your hands on digital currency? So I would say very simply, you'd have to sign up for an account for IndependentReserve, and it's of course one of the best cryptocurrencies and the #1 institutional exchange in Australia. Tim mentioned before, we're the first regulated exchange in Australia. We've been approved, actually, it happened 2 weeks ago, by the Australian government. And I think it's really important. You have to have an account with an exchange. So think of it, it's a bit like having an account with the ASX. And the reason you have to do this is if you want to swap in, say, Australian dollars that you have in your bank account to go buy Ethereum, which would then go buy the PlayUp, you need to go through an exchange. Now, there are exchanges that, a lot of exchanges in the world will take your money by a credit card, but the little secret is not many of them actually have banking in Australia, because a lot of banks don't bank the cryptocurrency exchanges. So we're one of the few in Australia that actually do it. We're the largest one to do so. So that means your money is safe and secure. And it also means with IndependentReserve, it's the only exchange in the world where all the cryptocurrency or the digital currency pairs, you can buy or sell them in Australian dollars, US dollars, or New Zealand dollars. We actually have quite a few New Zealand customers, so it's quite popular in New Zealand. This is really important to look at the quality of exchange that you go put your money on. So I put a very basic slide. How do you create an account? So you go onto the website independentreserve.com. You click on the create account link on the top there. The window pops up there. You put your username, your password, and your repeat password. Tim's happily provided a referral code for everyone here. There's a 6-digit referral code for the people coming on the PlayUp ICO. Then after you've done that, you'll ask to verify yourself. So you put in your personal account details, email address, and something I really recommend for customers about security. Steph might have mentioned that it's a bearer instrument. Once it's gone there, you can't reverse it. So if someone has your password, they can effectively steal your money. So it's really important to activate what's called two-factor authentication if you're dealing in any sizable sorts of money. So that's just an app you download on your phone, and every 30 seconds it gives you a new 6-digit code. So when you log in, you put your email, your password, and you put that two-factor authentication code. It's a free app you can get from Google. So after you've done this, you just you take a selfie with your driver's license, your passport, and that's put through, and you get signed up as a customer. So once you've done this, then you can you transfer some cash into the IndependentReserve exchange, and if you're going to buy into the PlayUp ICO, what you'll need to do, you'll need to purchase some Ethereum, and when you purchase that, if you haven't done the other methods, of course, but most people who will come purchase this later on an exchange, they'll purchase Ethereum and they'll move that to another exchange. So there's other exchanges that don't take fiat or they don't take Australian dollars that'll be offshore that will be trading typically ICOs. You'll need to purchase it with Ethereum. So you move Ethereum into a wallet. So there's a wallet called My Ether Wallet you could use, and you just transfer your Ethereum balance over to that. Then you move that to that other cryptocurrency exchange that trades that ICO, and you purchase those PlayUp coins. And then once you've done that and you've sold that, you want to transfer that back. You move the Ethereum back to IndependentReserve, and you can cash that out into Australian dollars. So I know that sounds quite convoluted, and I think the cryptocurrency space again is in its earlier stage. But what we'll see in the future is a much more seamless place to do this. But this is why I think you're all here, because you want to get in early. You want to find out and be ahead of the curve in this space, and that's exactly how you do it here.